Welcome, literary slummers, to the inaugural episode of Shelf Aware. I am one of your hosts, Anna.
And I'm the other of your hosts, Em. This fortnight on Shelf Aware, we are starting our unit on new adult fiction, which we are kicking off with the 2019 E.L. James novel, The Mister, which is the tale of a man who falls in love with his sex-trafficked housekeeper. But before we get into all of that, let's get into the new adult genre in general. And Anna, your feelings and thoughts towards it.
Yes, I have never really read a ton of new adult fiction, or I guess like what would be considered new adult fiction, because I definitely read books that star characters that are this age, but I tend to think of the new adult genre as something that is a little more recent and a little bit, and I know this is probably stereotyping it, and I'm sure there are books out there that aren't like this, but are more kind of like thriller, like romantic suspense heavy and sex heavy books, which I'm sure there are tons of new adult books that are out there that aren't like that, but that's just kind of always been my impression of the genre. And I've always just kind of reached more towards adult fiction or YA fiction, like, I don't know, books where I can either think about how great it is I'm not that old yet, or think about how much I regret not doing when I was younger.
So you don't want to be confronted with the reality of now.
Yes, exactly. I'm reading fiction, damn it, not nonfiction.
I think technically, and we're going to get into this next fortnight, but it's a newer genre, to be sure, and it's not very well defined, I think. There's a lot of contention about what is and isn't new adult. The primary kind of thing is, like you said, the age of the characters. Generally, it's pretty much 20s, right? Like, it's like people in their 20s is pretty much what it is.
Wow, so dang, I guess I'm not new adult anymore, so I can feel free to read these books at my leisure.
You've aged out of new adult.
Great.
So now's the perfect time to get into new adult.
You're right. Let go of YA, lean into new adult.
You can look back on the follies of these youth and laugh at them.
Oh boy, I'm glad I'm not in my 20s anymore. I got all my shit together as soon as I hit 30. It feels great.
I am still in my 20s, and I have read, I think, a fair bit of new adult, actually, because I'm getting kind of the info together for the next episode we do on this. I think I've actually read more new adult than I thought I had. And again, it's difficult because it's a newer genre, and a lot of it is marketing, and a lot of stuff could be new adult, but the publishers have decided to not market it that way. Yeah, so like my exposure to the genre, I guess, would be Anna Todd, which gross. Colleen Hoover, which I've heard mixed things about. I've heard more negative than positive things, so I've kind of like stayed away. And then Sarah J. Maas. So you haven't read any Colleen Hoover?
No, I get like that's like what I think of, I guess, not my exposure. But yeah, so I haven't read it. And then Sarah J. Maas, which is like, to me, is just more of a fantasy in general, as opposed to specifically new adult, which may be unfair to the genre, but that's how I categorize it in my mind.
There's a lot of crossover, I think, between new adult and romance, which I've read a decent amount of. And again, like, just kind of it's not necessarily something I seek out, but I have, as I've been looking at, like, lists of new adult authors, I'm like, oh yeah, I read them all the time.
Yeah, I know you love your Anna Todd. I've seen your shelves.
Oh yeah, me and Anna Todd go way back. But this book, E.L. James's The Mister, is technically a new adult book. I'm not sure if it's really marketed that way or not, but it's filed as such under Goodreads, and it certainly has some of the genre characteristics. The characters are all in their 20s, and yeah.
I think it had a little bit of that coming to age feel, which is also like a genre I don't like for future units, I suppose. I don't like coming of age stories. I'm sorry. At least not contemporary ones.
Catch that much.
Not like a true coming of age story, but coming of age in the sense of like coming into one's own sense of self, or like growing
Yeah,
up. I don't like that theme of like, here's a book about me being an adult now, I guess. I don't know.
Getting my shit together.
Yeah.
I didn't really get that very much from this book, just because, and I now that you say that, I see it with the main character, but I was so uninterested in the main character in general that I kind of like glossed over any sort of character arc and growth.
Oh my god, he was annoying. He was very annoying.
Yes. So we're kind of dancing around it. First impressions of this book, just without giving away too many spoilers. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings?
I thought, okay, having not read an entire 50 Shades book and only having read excerpts of it, I feel like her writing has improved, but not enough to be good. And I also feel like this was a 200-page book tops, fleshed out into somehow being 500 pages long, and it was so repetitive.
Yes, I super agree about the writing. I also haven't read a full 50 Shades book. I think I mentioned before, I've seen the first movie and I've read excerpts. There was like a couple things that stuck out where I was like, that's very funny writing, but like in general I was like, this is pretty, I didn't even think it was bad necessarily. I just thought it was pretty like bog standard romance novelist type writing. I'm not trying to like diss this book or romance novels.
No, romance is a good genre.
Yeah, it's just, this wasn't, I was not impressed by it, but I wasn't horrified by it. So I was like, oh, this is fine.
Yes, that's how I felt.
And as to the length, I absolutely agree. It was way too long. I think that like, you could make the argument that there was just a lot of fluff that could be cut. I think you could also make the argument that it should have ended about 150 pages earlier.
Yes.
Because there is a very clear end of the book that could have been the end of the book. And then, like, that could have just been the end. But then we had to do, like, a whole nother plot. And I was like, why are we...
a whole nother act.
What's happening? Yes, exactly.
I just found her repeating herself so often in this book. I think it just needed an editor who could have been a little bit more aggressive and being like, you said that already, we get it, you've characterized that already, you don't need to beat a dead horse here.
Yeah. I think also there was a lot of description of shit that I did not need description
Oh my god, yes.
I was just like, I do not care what brand the piano is. I don't care what brand the second piano is.
There's like,
why are we doing this?
There's like a couple times at the end where it's supposed to be like really tense, and the main character is like, I stopped to post some pictures on my Instagram feed. I'm like, who gives a shit? Like,
the last 150 pages especially, it was so fucking jarring. The difference in, and I think this was the other, like, if I had a big problem with the content of the book, this was it. That it was very jarring, the difference in situation between the two characters. Because as the perspective flipped back and forth, I was just like,
I hated
you guys are in very different situations right now, and the tension is not equal in those situations.
Yes, it was done very poorly. It was kind of like, and I don't know, maybe I'm just bringing this up because of her past history with 50 Shades of Grey, but it was kind of like when someone is writing a fan fiction and then they abandon it and come back like 5 years later and they're like, oh, I'll just spit out an ending now, my writing style's like kind of different and I don't really have the flow of the story anymore, but here's an ending for all of you people who've had this bookmarked for 5 years. That's kind of how I felt this book was at the end.
Man. Yeah, I could kind of was doing the comparison. I kept comparing this to 50 Shades, even though I have not read 50 Shades. But I was like, oh, well, this is different. Oh, this seems like it's the same. Oh, I wonder if like the, you know, I was like, I kind of want to go read 50 Shades now, but I definitely don't want to go read 50 Shades. But yeah, who would you recommend this book for, if anyone?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
That was catty. Who would you recommend this book for?
If you liked 50 Shades of Grey, you would probably like some aspects of this book. I mean, I guess it depends on why you like 50 Shades of Grey. I honestly don't know. This book to me is very hard to recommend because I feel like there are different things in here that different people would find offensive, but maybe not everyone would find the whole picture offensive all the time. So,
yeah.
Maybe if you are not a picky reader and you read a ton of books and just like to read to be reading, it's a quick read for the 500 pages long that it is. And there are some sex scenes, so you're getting sex on the page.
Ew.
I don't know, man.
Here's the thing. I mentioned this to you in text before we recorded. I don't know who this book is supposed to be for. And you were like, oh, it's for horny housewives, essentially. Like, horny middle-aged housewives. And, like, I get that that's her brand from 50 Shades, but I feel like this is the album that a band drops, and all of the fans are like, what the fuck is this? Because, spoiler alert, it has no BDSM in it. So if that's what you were here for, there's no BDSM. So, like, what's even the point? But
it was very tame, like, well, we'll get into that when we get into the...
But also, the perspective, and I said, like, it's from the perspective primarily of the dude. Like, I don't just mean that it's more is written from the dude's perspective than the girl's perspective. The dude, his parts are in first person. The woman's parts are in third person. You are removed from the woman. The guy, I think, I feel like I can make this argument having finished the whole book now. I wasn't sure at the time that I texted you. When you read a romance novel, certain romance novels, especially romance novels from the 80s, and that was kind of the vibe of this book.
Yes, very old-fashioned romance.
But generally, the woman is kind of a blank slate on which you can project yourself, and the man is hot and amazing and wonderful and whatever. That is not the case in this book. The man is, like, he's an asshole for the first part of the book, and then he's nothing. He has no character at all for the majority 100%. Of the book, outside of being in love with the other character. So he's the blank slate character that you are to project yourself onto, which was great for me as a bisexual woman, because the lady character was great. Loved her. But I can't imagine that 50-year-old horny housewives who are trying to get their engines revved up for their husband are going to like this book. Like, I don't think it... Because you're not attracted to him. You're attracted to her. That's the whole plot of the book. Like, and you were like, oh, well, they want to imagine him wanting them like that. I'm like, but she's not enough of a blank slate for that to be the case. Because she's got a personality. She's got a very distinct... It's kind of all over the place, but she has a personality. He does not. He has a personality, He is the viewpoint character for all of us. And I just don't understand. Ew, this was supposed to be
very strange.
So I actually think I would recommend it to people who have no association with 50 Shades of Grey, who have never read 50 Shades of Grey, and are just kind of romance fans. Because if you completely dissociate this from 50 Shades, it's fine. It's a fine romance novel. I don't know if it's a romance novel I'd want to spend 500 pages on, but it's fine.
Yeah, but even then, I want to say, like, the traditional romance novel, like you said, would have ended at that point where I think that we're both thinking the exact same spot where it should have ended. And then it kind of becomes this, like, thriller and completely jumps the rails on genre. So
see, but I don't know. I think that's a little bit more common now.
Is it?
Because there are a few other romance novels I'm thinking of that have more of a plot to them. Or not even more of a plot, because that sounds dismissive, because falling in love can be a plot. But more of a, we have to do something big and heroic sort of plot. And I think sometimes it really, really works. I don't know that it works in this case. But
you know what this book reminded me a lot of in the end is the Amber Room. Like, just that whole feeling of, now we're going to go to a bunch of different countries and we're not really going to talk a lot about it, and they're all going to be kind of bland, and I don't know, weird romance thing is still going on. It just reminded me a lot of that, and I didn't.
It was like a weird tour.
Yes.
Of Europe that I didn't ask for in this book.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe that could be another thing. If you're into, I guess, like a Disney's Epcot version of Europe, like that level of immersiveness. Oh, I went to the France Pavilion in Epcot. That's basically the same as going to France. Like, that's this book. Yeah. Like, the end of this book. It's like, well, I've pretty much been to Croatia now, I guess.
In the trunk of a car, at least.
Yeah. Spoilers.
Spoilers. Can't get there yet. So, I guess we should get into the actual plot of this book.
Yes. So now would be the time, if us talking about this has made you want to read the book, now would be the time to pause for 501 pages and go read it and come back to us on the other side. We'll see you then. For the rest of you, come along with us.
Whatever point you become tired of reading the book.
Yeah, and just want to see what happens and let Come
Yes.
tune in.
We're here to provide that service. Okay, so Maxim is a rich boy whose brother has just
Maxim.
died in a motorcycle accident, and he has inherited the title of Earl of Trevithick? Travethik?
I'm so glad you've brought this up already, because I have a game prepared.
Excellent.
So put your notes away for a second, because as I was reading this novel, when these names got dropped, these titles and names of places and such, I was like, man, these sound made up. And they are.
Yes.
Specifically, they sound the sort of made up that sounds like it was made up in the 1980s for a 1980 fantasy book or movie. So I have a game in which I'm going to tell you things from either this novel or a piece of 1980s fantasy media, and you have to tell me if it is from this novel or 1980s fantasy media.
Okay, let's see how closely I read.
So first one. This one should be easy. Trevithick.
Oh, 1990s fantasy novel, surely. No, I know. It's from this one. I just said it.
Yes. All right, number 2. Grathwohl.
Can you spell? How many apostrophes are in it?
No apostrophes.
Dang it.
Grathwohl. Grathwohl.
I'm gonna go with the fantasy novel.
You're correct. That is the name of the Archon of the Weirds of Glen Wilding in Patricia C. Reed's Shadow Magic from 1982.
Excellent. Okay.
Nelwyn.
Nelwyn?
Nelwyn.
Does it start with a G?
It starts with an N, but there is a Y in it.
Ooh. I think that's from this book.
Incorrect. That is the name of the race of dwarvish people in the 1988 film Willow.
Damn it.
All right, number 4. Angwin. Angwin. Angwin.
Angwin. Okay, I'm just gonna default. Is that to this book? Is that from this book?
That is from this book. That is
Okay.
the house owned by this
gosh.
dipshit. Ingery.
Ingery?
Ingery or Ingery?
I don't remember. Okay, is it from 1980s fantasy?
It is. It is the fictional kingdom from Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones.
Oh, phew. Okay,
Tresillian.
that's from this book.
That's a trick question. It is both Tresillian Hall in this dumb book and Lord Jack Tresillian in the 1986 Infocom game Moon Mist.
Excellent, excellent.
All right, last one.
Okay.
This one's multiple choice. Of these 3, which of these is an estate owned by the jackass in this book? Aruk, Teok, or Thesk?
I think it's the middle one.
You're correct, it is Teok.
I remember that weird-ass name.
Aruk is a kingdom in the 1982 movie The Beastmaster, and Thesk is a region in D&D.
Nice. Oh my gosh. But see how well they all blend together? Like,
Yeah, they all sound like nonsense.
oh my gosh. Like, I know you have to try really hard to not accidentally name it after something real.
Just
But
don't
I
put
don't
those
know.
details in.
Yeah.
Why did you have to name all these houses that he owns? Just don't say that. Just be
Yeah.
like, oh, the house I own in Oxfordshire. Like, cool, you don't need to tell us the name of the house.
Do you like they used to do in books where they would just put the first letter and then a line to indicate that there was more?
The old
but they were
Austin
like,
Dash.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, do that. Bring that back. So he's the Earl of Trevithick. Who knows? There's no pronunciation guide. And most recently, Maxim has slept with his best friend Caroline, who is also his brother's widow, who just died
Yay.
like 2 days ago. And he regrets this decision, but also he sleeps around a lot, so he kind of rationalizes it as just being grief-ridden, I guess. I don't know. It was very off-putting. He had, like, in the first 2 or 3 chapters, I think he had sex with, like, 6 different women, which, I mean, whatever. I don't know.
Again, is like, who is this book for? Like,
Exactly.
who is this for? Like, I get that is a very, again, I keep saying stuff is 80s because it is. Like, but that is a very
Yes.
80s romance novel trope, right, of the hero who has bedded oh so many women until he finds the right
He's a
woman.
rake.
Yes, and the woman who is so virginal and pure. Spoiler alert, that will apply to the woman in this book.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just like, I thought we all agreed that was gross and we were done with that. But I guess E.L. James isn't. I don't know.
Nope. Which, you know, if this was based off of Twilight fan fiction, then maybe just Edward was really old-fashioned still. I don't know, man.
No, that's the actual... Okay, like, not to, you know, reveal how much of a Twilight nerd I used to be, but in Twilight, Edward's a virgin. Like, that's a major plot point. Yeah, that's a whole thing.
Role reversal?
No, because she's a virgin too. Everyone's a virgin. It's just because Stephenie Meyer's a huge Mormon and she, you know, doesn't believe in sex before marriage. So
forgot about that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you can never forget that Stephenie Meyer is a huge Mormon. It's very important.
Alicia, again.
I was reading it Alicia, but
Alicia.
Yeah.
That sounds better. Alicia is his daily, which is basically a person who comes and cleans his flat for him every few days or so. I don't think it was every day, but yeah. So they refer to her as his daily, and they fall in love because they are both physically attracted to each other, and also Alicia is good at the piano because she has synesthesia, which allows her to see musical notes as color, and this ability somehow grants her the power to immediately memorize any piece of music that she has played or seen played or heard. I don't know, man. She's a prodigy.
I mean, I don't know a lot about synesthesia, but, and I mean, I could be totally talking on my ass on this. I could be wrong, but to me, the explanation given does not make sense. Of like, oh, I see them as colors, so I just remember the colors and then I play it instantly. Because if that were the case, I could like look at the fucking Mona Lisa and then just paint the Mona Lisa because I know the colors. Like, that doesn't make sense.
It seems like it would be harder to learn it that way. But again, I don't have synesthesia, so who knows?
I had a friend in high school who tried to convince me he had synesthesia. Because he saw words that were misspelled in red, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure you just have spell check on.
Amazing. Well, now look, see, I just did a quick Google. This person says, I've used my synesthesia to my advantage in memorization. Some people are able to learn over 23 languages because of the gift. Learn lyrics of a song backwards just to prove I had memorized the words and their orders thanks to the colors I perceived them in. Yeah. I guess it's a thing.
I guess it's a thing.
Wow. Aren't we goofs now?
Don't we look foolish? Egg on our face.
Yep. Anyway, Alicia's in a spot of bother because she is not in the country legally. And this bit of backstory on Alicia is very painfully slowly dragged out for the first, 380 pages of the book, perhaps. But what it boils down to is Alicia is betrothed to marry a man in Albania, because she's from Albania. I don't know if I mentioned that. She's from Albania. She's betrothed to marry a man who is very violent, and who's very jealous of the attention she receives for playing the piano so well that he threatens to break all her fingers. And so her mother plans to get Alicia out of this marriage by having her leave the country altogether. And she's basically smuggled to England by two men she and her mother thought they could trust, but it turns out they were actually human traffickers. And she managed to escape by running away when they were distracted, and these two men are still after her because she caused them to lose a lot of money when she escaped.
So essentially, E.L. James, after publishing 50 Shades of Grey and getting basically all of the backlash in the world about how she was writing a novel, or she wrote a novel that, like, didn't understand consent, didn't understand BDSM, was bad, was not good, was not sex positive, she was like, I know what will fix this. I'll write about a woman who is the victim of human trafficking.
Yeah, sounds like a good move.
What? I'm really glad there isn't BDSM in this one, because, like, it was already such, like, problematic, like, power structures. And to her credit, I think she handled it as well as you can handle a book about a victim of human trafficking in a sex book. Like, I'm glad that, you know, we didn't get any terrible sex scenes that were part of that life or anything like that. Like, good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess she wasn't ever forced to have to be a sex worker. But,
right.
like, she talks about how she escaped, but then, like, all these other girls didn't. And she's, like, constantly reflecting
and
on,
that
like,
never gets resolved.
Exactly! Which I'm like, wow, cool.
Like,
glad I have to think about that now.
Fuck Florinia, I guess. That 17-year-old you told us about.
Several times.
Right. I would like to point out, because, okay, so like I said, you know, she handles the consent issue well, I think, in that they many times talk about, you know, like, oh, you don't have to do this, you're allowed to leave whenever you want, like, I'm still gonna help you even if you don't make out with me or whatever, like, she puts in a good faith effort to make it less creepy that this is a man dating his servant.
Yes.
However, I would like to point out there is a passage in this book in which I forgot this dude's name because he just doesn't matter at all. Maxim, and he's like talking about his first hookup with Caroline when he was like 13 or something, and they got caught, and then his dad took him to a high class brothel. Like, and the book never,
and he never
brings
feels
that
like
up or makes that
sad
point.
or like embarrassed by that. He's like proud of it.
And I'm not saying that like all women who are in sex work are trafficked, but like I think that if your novel is about a woman who was trafficked for sex work purposes, you should probably be very careful about bringing up other sex workers. Like, and like having your other main character partake in those services. Like, you need to do a little bit more ground covering to make it clear that that is a different situation than this situation, or make him realize that there may be similarities in those situations and he needs to deal with that. Like, because as it is, it's just kind of, again, really reinforcing that these people are from very different worlds. Like,
their views on sex, I don't think, to me, were ever, I don't know how to phrase this. There are many times in this book where Maxim acknowledges that he is very wrong for having these thoughts about her, and he calls himself a fucking pervert, and he also makes comments about how it is such hard work to break in a virgin. And I'm just, these feelings of like, I don't know, they just never get resolved in a clean way. Like, I never feel like Maxim ever feels apologetic for his previous views. Like, I don't think he learned anything, just that he got lucky in this one instance where when he thought with his dick, she also like was thinking with her dick. I mean,
there's also the scene in which he notices that she's wearing like a school sweater because it's like a hand-me-down from the kid that she lives with who's a giant and she's tiny or whatever. And he's like, oh, how old are you? And she's like, I'm 23. And he thinks, old enough, good.
I don't know, dude. He's very, even like after they are kind of in a more established relationship, he still refers to her as his daily, and he still says like, I'm fucking my daily, I'm fucking this woman that works for me that I pay. Like, he never does anything to alleviate that situation, that power dynamic. It's it just keeps going.
He eventually does like say like, oh, you're my girlfriend now, and he's like, you want to live with me? And she's like, I want to keep cleaning for you, and I want you to keep paying me because otherwise I would be a kept woman. And I'm like, okay, well, that's okay, whatever. But again, this gets to my point of like, who the fuck is this book for? Because the like,
I don't know,
the kink of, man, I really hope that I can one day find a man who's really good at fucking and also lets me clean his apartment. Like, that's not a fetish any human has ever had, I think.
Yeah.
Like, the boss employee thing is, like, a kink that some people are into. I'm not really, but I at least get that. But, like, the specifically boss and housemaid thing, I feel like that's such, if anybody's into that, it's almost all dudes, right? Or it's, or I should say it's whoever is the boss, right? I don't think there are that many women who are getting off on specific, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe this is the second time that there's egg on my face.
I don't know. It's like
just an eggy
weird
mess.
It's like a weird Cinderella thing, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Like, here she is, like, literally sweeping up his cinders.
No. It's not a Cinderella thing, though, because Cinderella, that story is, I am working for a mean person. I will go find a nice person to fuck me out of that. And this is,
it's like a too close to the situation Cinderella. It's like a incestuous Cinderella. You didn't go far enough out of your Cinderella situation.
It's like Cinderella if Cinderella wanted to fuck her stepmother. Like,
yes, exactly.
That's not.
It's a weird Cinderella.
Actually, now that I've said that, no, I'm kidding.
Oh, God. Anyway, so they're just sharing these lustful glances with each other, and all of Maxim's friends can see that he interacts with Alicia differently than he does other women, and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, it all goes to shit when the two human traffickers discover where Alicia is working, and they come banging on Maxim's door, which very sadly interrupts their first kiss.
Of course.
These guys pretend to be from immigration services, but they do a very poor job of it because they don't even get the name of the department correct. Maxim's like, there is no immigration services here in the UK. We call it something else. So he tells them to come back with a warrant or he'll call the police, and they run away. And he's like, ooh, good. I scared them off. But Alicia has already snuck out of Maxim's flat and runs back to the place where she's staying with a family friend. Maxim panics and goes chasing after her. And you think this is going to be, like, really intense, like, high-octane chase scene, but no, he finds her. It's fine. She gets off a train and he hugs her. He's like, oh, thank God.
It's also it's the same chase scene as later, just in smaller scale. He knows she's going to a place, so he uses his money to get to that place faster.
Exactly.
And then she shows up, and he's like, hey, I'm here already. It's all fine. Money fixed it. Like,
yeah. I don't know. It was everything in this book that was set up to be a problem is, like, instantly cleared up as soon as it all comes to a head. And then it was like, why did I spend all this time worrying about this? Whatever. So we find out that these men have been harassing the family friend that Alicia has been staying with. And so he decides he needs to take Alicia out of the city so the men can't track her down, and also leaves one of his best friends in charge of keeping 24/7 security on the friend's house until the friend moves to Canada, which is a detail about that character you didn't need to know because it doesn't matter at all.
Right.
Much like most of this book.
Just unnecessary details everywhere.
Everywhere.
I think we got, like, within the first, I know this is backtracking a bit, but I think in the first, like, 3 or 4 chapters, we got 2 separate, like, page-long descriptions of Maxim's apartment, because we got it from Maxim's point of view and from Alicia's point of view. Mm-hmm. And it was, like, extra bizarre because both of them had been there before, so it wasn't like they were walking in and seeing it for the first time, and by the second time, we, the reader, were not seeing it for the first time because we already got the description from the other person.
Yeah, it's so unnecessary. So many.
I don't know of any time that I need a room described to me, honestly. Like, maybe that's just my preferences as a reader, but pretty much if you're like, oh, they walked into the room, I'm like, cool. If you maybe throw out, like, it was a really nice room, I'll be like, cool, they're rich. Like, or if you're like, oh, it was a shabby room, I'm like, got it, they're poor. I don't need you to, like, describe the artwork on the walls. Like, it's cool.
I feel like if you describe the character well enough, you can get an idea of what their home would be like without you having to explain it in painstaking detail every time we enter the room.
It's almost like she wanted to describe the room so that she didn't have to describe Maxim. Like, kind of.
Very true. You know,
like,
I couldn't even tell
Maxim's
you what color
character.
hair he has.
Oh my god, I don't think I can either. My instinct is blonde, but I don't know if that's correct.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's just because I'm imagining Draco Malfoy, but I don't know.
Maybe. The only characteristic I remember of Maxim, besides he's very mean to women, except for Alicia, is that, and it's a very delightful detail, when he was a child, he wanted to go on the river bus, and his mom never took him, and he's salty about it.
Still.
Because I read that, and first off, I don't know what a river bus is, and I don't want anyone to tell me, because it can't possibly compete with the whimsical version in my head.
It's just the magic school bus with these big rain barrels tied to the side so it can float.
Every time he mentioned wanting something or, like, being sad about something, in my head, I added because of the river bus.
Because Mommy wouldn't take me on the river bus.
Right, exactly. This is another thing. I had very distinct voices in my head for these characters, and for Maxim it was essentially that, the voice you just did. But for Alicia, because...
I want you to touch my dick, Alicia!
Before we get into, like, more of Alicia, kind of her defining thing is that she's into Maxim. So, like, my voice for her, so she keeps referring to how much she likes Maxim and how hot Maxim is, but of course she doesn't call him by his name. She calls him the title of the book, the Mister. And the problem with that is, that's a word that I primarily associate with Newsies.
Oh, no!
So, like, it was like, hey, Mister, wanna buy a pape? Like, that was the voice that I had going for
Hey, Mister!
Hey, Mister! Mister! I really want to touch your dick, Mister! Mister, touch my
Mister,
boobies!
I was trafficked for sex, Mister!
Hey, Mister, my story's too sad for this book! I lost it a little bit on that one.
We're just gonna gloss over the whole thing, Mister!
We're not going to get into the intricacies of the human trafficking and human rights violations that come with it. It's fine, because I was saved by you, Mister!
Mutual, I'm sure.
Yeah, I got into that a little bit, too. Oh, man. But yeah, so that was my version of this book, a river bus obsessed small posh child and his sex trafficked newsy girlfriend.
Oh my god. I'd read that.
Gotta find your own fun.
You know what? I'd watch that film adaptation.
Right?
Maxim takes Alicia to the countryside, to a village that belongs to his family and his family home. But this is very important. He doesn't mention to her yet that he's an earl. For various reasons. Most of them is because he just can't be bothered.
I mean, yeah. It's like, he doesn't want her to, want him for his money, but it's like she already knows you're richer than her. Like, that wasn't you're her employer. Like you obviously make more money than her. What are you talking about? Like, she already, that river bus has sailed, my friend. Like,
the river bus is on, Mummy's on the river boat and she's gone without you again. Puts her up in one of the vacation rentals called the Hideaway because he obviously doesn't want to take her to the family earldom. I don't know, what do you call an earl's house? I didn't want to look it back up in the book.
You call it Tresillian Hall, I think, is what you call it.
Okay. Ooh, I gotta remember that one. See, I kept when I was writing up my notes, I kept wanting to say the big house, and I was like, no, that's not right. Maxim buys Alicia clothes, he shows her the seaside, he takes her shooting in this weird, like, Chekhov's gun, but it starts in the third act and ends in the fifth act. Or no, maybe it starts in the third act and ends in the third act.
No, I was gonna say it starts in the, well, yeah, I think it starts in the third act and ends in the fifth act, but only if this was a weird experimental Chekhov play where after the fifth act, the curtain rises back up and they do another 2 acts.
Yeah, I hate it. And then suddenly the gun is the main character. No.
Oh man.
Basically, he treats her real good, and then they have sex for a third of this book.
Which, that was fine. It wasn't.
It was fine.
It's just, you know.
It was sex. only thing that I was like a little questionable was when he started like.
Was it music to my dick?
He was going to perform the act of cunnilingus, but before he did it with his mouth, he first did it with his nose.
Yes! Oh, I forgot
Long
about that.
enough to make her almost come, which I was like, what are you doing down there? Because she's standing, I think, in this scene, and he's kneeling in front of her, just like poking her with his nose.
I mean, I don't really think the nose is the most effective tool to, like, go as hardcore as he was going. I think if you're, like, getting down and dirty, you might, like, kind of experiment and, like, maybe for a second or two, like, try to do that.
Do a
but it
nuzzle or
wouldn't
something?
be, like, your intro, right?
Like,
Except
that he like went with that for a while. Like, that was almost his main course.
I feel like this is because I think, was this in his viewpoint or hers? Because I think it was hers, right?
His.
I thought it was hers.
I think it was his. Let's
there's
see.
a couple
I don't
that are in
wanna look
his
this
and
up
there's a
again.
couple that are in hers. Because I was gonna say, I feel like if this was in her viewpoint, we could make the case that he's over there thinking, you know what? She doesn't know like anything about sex. I'm gonna rub my nose on her clit and make her think that's a thing.
I can do anything I want.
Like he was just kind of fucking with her with this one.
Oh my god. But just like after the first time they had sex, he says, "I finally laid my daily." Like, come on, dude.
No, friend.
Give it a rest. I don't know. So they have so much sex that she's like very sore, and they have to take a break from the sex, but then they have more sex. It's a lot of sex. And everything is wonderful and idyllic and sexy until Maxim gets a call that his flat in London has been burgled. And he has to go up to the big house. He has to go to what's it, Tresillian Hall, in order to deal with this bad bit of business. And he leaves Alicia on her own because he doesn't want her to know he's an earl yet. And while he's away Skyping with his lawyer, what do they call them? Not lawyers in the UK, but
solicitors?
Yeah, when he's like Skyping with his solicitor and eating breakfast with his staff, Alicia's human traffickers come back and try to kidnap her. Which, I guess, how did they get that information? So, assumably, and this is never 100% clarified, but assumably they're the ones that burgled his flat.
Yeah. So they looked at his mail, and it was, like, redirected from that cottage by Tresillian Hall.
Wait, he had mail?
Yeah.
What? Is this a thing that you actually read in the book, or are you making this up?
I just made this up.
Okay. I was like, wait, that makes no sense.
But, like, maybe it was, like, they looked at his shit. Well, because they took his computer, right? So they're also computer hackers, of course.
Oh, they could look at his email,
and so they
maybe.
they probably just looked at his shit and were like, oh,
sense.
he's this guy. This is probably where he is, because he's, like, an earl and his shit's public.
Yeah, because they're supposed to own a shit ton of property or
Right.
something. And so I was just like, how did they get lucky and just find
Well, I think
the right
this is
one?
maybe the main one. So, like, they started here. I don't know.
Yeah. So they show up. And then I don't remember how Maxim finds out that they're there.
Fuck, let me think. She's getting beat up by them.
And then he, like, has a sudden, like, he rushes there, and then the two staff members follow him. But I don't remember.
Is it that he figures out that they were probably the burglars? He's like, oh shit, that means she's in danger? Is that what it is?
Oh, they came up to the big house first. They came up to Tresillian Hall. And the guy is like, some rough-looking Eastern European types were here, sir, is what he says. And he's like, oh no, they're the bad guys. And he rushes off. And he makes it back just in time to save Alicia. He takes one of the shotguns that was the aforementioned Chekhov shotgun, and he threatens the men at gunpoint and ties them up and has one of his staff members take Alicia up to... Sorry, the instinct is just to say the big house every time. Take them up to Tresillian Hall.
Yep.
And she still doesn't know that he's an earl, so this is like a big plot point. They call the cops, get the human traffickers arrested, and the cops mention that they want to interview Alicia. And Maxim was like, oh, I gotta take her back to London so the cops don't find out she's here illegally. But meanwhile, back at the house, Maxim's housekeeper lady, Danny, spills the beans about Maxim being an earl. Which, like, I don't know, the way she does it, she was like, "Oh, my lord." And she's like, "What do you mean, lord?" And she's like, "Oh, he didn't tell you." "No, didn't tell me what?" "Well, he's the earl." Like, I don't know. It's just like a very stupid.
Well, here's the thing. I think Danny was out for blood. I think
She
Danny
wanted
was
her to know.
done with his shit and wanted to fuck up his relationship because, and this is my point earlier, I said that he treats women poorly. There is a part of this book where he is on the phone with Danny, his longtime servant who, like, helped raise him and who he has known for his, like, entire life.
Yes.
And he's, like, on the phone arranging shit. And this is after he meets Alicia and, like, becomes a better man and whatever. And she's, like, in the middle of a sentence and he hangs up on her. So he's an asshole. And Danny was like, I'm gonna fuck with him a little bit.
Don't you know he's the Earl of Traffick? I'm gonna say it really quickly so you don't know how I pronounced it. He's the Earl of Traffick.
Probably like one of those British words that, like, looks one way and it's not pronounced like that at all. Like, for example, in this book, I came face to face with my least favorite word of all time. Well, not even word, name of a place, which is a name of a thing that, even though I have heard it approximately 8 million times, I will never remember. It, like, will not stick in my head. That river? Yeah, that river.
That river, I always think about, too, is it Thames?
I think it's Thames, but
Is it Thames?
I'm like... I feel like every time I say it, I'm turning it into Tim's too much. And I don't think that's right.
Tim's.
I don't think it's Tim's, but it's not Thames.
Tim Thames?
Is it Thames?
Is this the river Tim Thames?
I know it's not the way it looks, which is Thames. And that's just wrong.
Thames.
But...
Please, call me Thames. I'm an adult now. I'm a big boy, River. Mummy.
Tim was my name as a youth. I'm a big river now, full of river buses.
And you know what, Mother? I will take myself on the river bus.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, I was trying to think of, so, like, in the most recent Cormoran Strike book, they had the family name. It was spelled Cheswick, but they made a point of saying, oh, it's pronounced Cheswick. And so I was like, maybe if it's like Traffic.
There's a lot of those, like, in Britain, you know, where English it's the Queen's English and totally correct, where the words just don't at all sound like the way they're spelled, and we're just too stupid as Americans to understand.
We're two stupid Americans here.
We don't do it right.
Yeah, so, you know, I know you're listening, Sam. Just let me know.
Please.
Tips?
Please do not tell me how to pronounce that river, because I know, I've heard it a million times. It's never gonna stick.
It's Thames.
It's Thames.
Alicia finds out that Maxim is an earl, and she is a little bit troubled by this. She gets it into her mind that because Maxim is an earl, he can't really have any feelings towards her and will dump her as soon as he gets bored with her and a new flavor of the week comes along. And that's why he didn't tell her about his title, because he was going to surprise dump her. And she thinks that it would be better to leave than to be asked to leave. So she tries to sneak out of the house, but she gets lost because it's so big.
Which, again, girl, you knew he had money. Like, this isn't
honestly
new information. I mean, like, yeah, the title, like, whatever, that's new. But, like, if your concern is, like, oh, we're in a different social class, he'll never, like, really want to be with me, like, long-term because his class won't accept me. Like, you knew you were in a different social class before.
Very true.
Like, you were wearing hand-me-down jumpers from a 14-year-old. And he's bought you 1,000 pounds worth of clothes. Like, you knew this.
I don't understand. So she saw he has this tattoo that is his family's crest. And she's seen it, and she's like, oh, look at that tattoo. It's like the flag of Albania. And he's like, yep, not gonna tell you what it signifies. The tattoo she sees everywhere in this town that his family owns. Why wouldn't you be like, why is your tattoo like that thing? And why is it everywhere? Are you that thing?
I mean, I could see, like, her thought being, the tattoo is a symbol of this town, and he's from this town, so he got the tattoo, right? Like, not
Maybe.
like, but the thing that really, I think, pushes the tattoo thing into just, like, hilarious territory for me is that the first time she sees the tattoo, she's like, it's so intricate, she could only make out a wing. I'm like, that doesn't sound very intricate. That sounds like it's probably, like, not a good tattoo.
Sounds the opposite of intricate.
Like, you're looking straight at it and you're like, oh, it's something with a wing. I don't know. Could be a plane, maybe. Could be like a raven. I don't know. But, like, does not recognize it as a two-headed eagle. So I'm like, is it a good tattoo or is it like a poke and stick? Like, what's the deal, my friend?
Has it blurred a little bit? Like, did he do it himself in boarding school?
He needs to get it touched up.
Yeah. And, like, he himself says that, like, it's just a, not dumbed down, but it's, like, a less elaborate version of the crest. So it's already, like, a not elaborate version of something that is elaborate. I don't know.
Like, crests aren't that elaborate. Like, they're pretty...
Yeah, they're usually pretty... It's just, like, a shield and then some sort of badly drawn animal, because weren't most of them invented at a time when it was like the monks were drawing shit on whatever scraps of paper they had.
How to draw animals. They were just
That's
like,
true.
well,
they
it's
didn't
got
know what they
horns.
looked like.
I guess it's a deer.
Here's 7 legs. I don't know. Alicia's lost in the house, and at this point you think, oh yeah, great, it's gonna, like, the tension is gonna ramp up again, because she is going to, like, sneak out, and they're gonna, like, someone's gonna find her and try to human traffic her again. But no, Maxim finds her and apologizes for lying, and they both confess their love to each other, and that's probably where the book should have ended, right?
That's where the book should have ended. Yeah, that was a great ending for the book. I think there were still, like, a lot of threads that were left hanging, but most of those threads didn't get resolved anyway. So
they added more threads if possible.
I mean, the next major thread was already an established thread, but it wasn't an established thread in a way that I was like, I need to know what happens with this.
Yes.
Because I thought it was resolved. I was like, well, she's away from that, so that's fine.
Yes. That was the whole point of the start of this book.
Yes, but so this book could have ended right there. I thought they were going to confess their love, and then we were going to get a happily ever after epilogue, which is a very common thing in romances, where they've just gotten married and she's settling into being like a earless or whatever.
Countess.
And she's like, yeah, that thing. See, that doesn't make sense though, because isn't there a count? Like, so there's count and countess, and then there's earl and countess.
I did look it up.
Why did they do
there's
that?
like no female form for earl.
Dumb.
According to Wikipedia,
she's an Earl Arena.
Yeah, Earl Arena. I like that.
So, and she's like giving performances in her piano, and he started a charity for human trafficking victims and has found purpose in his life. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, that's where this is gonna go. No, nothing like that.
Nope. In fact, this book goes on for probably like 200 pages more, I think. Maybe less. They have more sex, and then they go back to London.
We also don't really get a resolution of the Caroline thing, right? Because it's like, Caroline is...
Not...
Like, they have that argument.
He goes, and then she, like, runs out, and she's like, I'm sorry for all the mean things I said. You better go chase after Alicia.
Why is any of this in this book?
What? Yeah, it was so unnecessary.
I don't care. We have sex traffickers to deal with.
It didn't add... The whole Caroline thing could have just been cut.
Yeah.
We didn't have to have anything with Caroline in it, but...
No.
Anyway, so... The reason... When they go back to London, Maxim decides that he needs to go see Caroline, who has been texting and calling him nonstop since the death of Kit, the Earl. And he leaves Alicia alone because they assume it's safe because they've arrested the human traffickers. And while Maxim is over at Caroline's, telling her that he's in love with Alicia, and Caroline having a very bad reaction to this, Alicia decides it is safe to leave the flat by herself and goes to the grocery store to buy food, and she is confronted by the man her father was going to force her to marry back in Albania. And again, there's just so much here that could also have been cut. The man forces Alicia to follow him back home. Alicia leaves a note for Maxim to let him know the situation. But the whole time, this whole scene where she is being taken back against her will, we're given these, like, weird characterizations. This man that we've been kind of like taught to hate through the whole book as this violent, awful man is suddenly given these traits where he's a little bit like he cares for Alicia and he says he loves her and he's like pampering her a little bit and making sure that she's taken care of and also abusing her physically and emotionally at the same time. And it's just like this weird juxtaposition. It's like, why couldn't we have just left this bad guy 100% bad? Like, we understand this is not a situation she wants to be in. Why did you try to like layer this in some weird complexity? I didn't understand it.
I think it's like supposed to be like, oh, even people who are abusive can be charming sometimes. It just doesn't land at all because it's like we already have that object lesson with the fact that like Alicia was, because we get the backstory of their courtship, I guess you could say, and Alicia tells us that he was like charming at first and not an asshole, and then it kind of all came out as like time went on. And then we also have like Alicia's mother's relationship, which we get little glimpses of, that she's in an abusive relationship with Alicia's father.
Yeah.
You know, like her mother still stays in that relationship for various reasons because of like culture and whatever, and we don't really have time to get into that because we only have 100-some pages left in this book and we're not going to do anything interesting with it.
Exactly. It's just like there's nothing at stake here. Like, we already know this is a bad guy. We know the situation is not good. Why do you have to try and like play this game where we're like, oh, maybe it would be fine if she stayed to live with this guy, you know? It's like there's no lesson to be learned here.
I feel like again it was very 80s romance novel where like in the 80s like a slightly toned down version of this guy would be the hero, right? Like where he'd be like,
yes.
Like, maybe not straight up, like, punching her out and stuff, but he'd be like, oh, Alicia, I love you so ardently. You can't play the piano for these other men. I won't allow it. Like, that sort of thing, that vibe. That is like a, you know, past romance hero vibe. So I must
keep you to myself.
I feel like this is kind of like E.L. James being like, I get it, guys. That's not okay anymore. And it's like, yeah, E.L. James, we got that memo. Like, you didn't need to do this.
It's 2019, E.L. James. We know. It was stupid. It was just this long, drawn-out thing where Alicia was being dragged across the continent and juxtaposed by these scenes where Maxim's like, I'm patiently sitting in my business class seat of the airline, and isn't it a bother I had to fly commercial? I couldn't get a private jet. I'm gonna post some pictures on Instagram. Like,
and then it goes back to Alicia, and it's like she's standing up to her captor and slapping him because he's trying to kiss her, and he slaps her back, and he's like, get in the bed, and she's like, I will never be yours. And then it goes back to Maxim, and he's like, I think I'll have an egg salad sandwich for lunch.
Yes, like, they're like going out for drinks. And then back to Alicia.
Such a bad juxtaposition.
It is so, her betrothed is like trying to force himself on her and then like having to stuff her in the trunks of cars so that she can get past checkpoints because she lost her passport to the human traffickers. It's just like there is a huge difference in these narratives. There's one I would like to read about, as bad as it is, and one that just doesn't even need to exist.
I mean, like, you don't need Maxims, right? And the fact that it's there ruins any tension that this has. Because, again, it's like, we're like, okay, so he's gonna get there first, it's gonna be fine. And, like, it's just, it's so dumb, all of his stuff. I'm like, none of this, you could have, again, it's too much detail. You could have just had him trying to figure out a way to get there, panicking and whatever. All Alicia's point of view. She shows up at the house. Who's there? It's Maxim. Which, like, okay, that would seem kind of stupid too, but, like, at least you wouldn't have these weird tonal shifts every, like, 4 paragraphs where it's going from, like, abuse and kidnapping to, I wonder if the hotel got my luggage. It's like the definition of first world problems.
Maxim gets to Albania. He meets Alicia's parents. He asks their permission for him to marry Alicia. They're like, nah, man, she's betrothed. And then Alicia and her betrothed arrive at the parents' house while Maxim is there, and Maxim gets into a punch fight with the betrothed because he sees, like, the signs of abuse, the physical abuse.
Well, first Alicia tells everyone, and then she's like, and also, and shows them, like, very dramatically. Because first she does the fun trickaroo where she says in Albanian.
She tells everyone that she's pregnant with Maxim's baby as if that would diffuse the situation here. Like,
well, I mean, like, I don't know if she's so much trying to diffuse it as much as, because she knows this is what I'm saying. I like Alicia. I think Alicia is smart at this moment, because I think she knows that it's not going to end with someone getting killed, because she very smartly removed the bullets from the dude's gun earlier in their travels.
Yeah, the follow-up to the Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, very good work, Alicia. And she knows that her parents are going to side with the betrothed, like, end of story, right? So, like, the only thing that could get her out of it would be, hey, I already fucked this other dude, you don't want me now anyway. So, like, and also I'm pregnant with this kid. So I think it's actually, like, I thought it was a pretty smart move. I think that all of Maxim's bullshitting with it, where, like, because she's like, I'm pregnant with his baby, and also he beats the crap out of me and, like, shows them her neck, and he's like, you, and, like, goes to punch fight him, and I'm like, dude, just chill, like, just chill for, like, 5 minutes. I know he's a bad dude and we want to kill him, but, like, just chill, because, like, that's not the priority. The priority is not showing what, like, a tough, manly man you are. It's getting this girl out of the situation. Like, stop escalating. Like, just chill.
Let's make everything worse so that Alicia's dad has to pull his gun down from the wall and aim it at you.
The third Chekhov's gun in this.
Yes. Why? Okay, so the thing that kind of, like, smooths everything over is when Maxim reveals that he is an earl and that Alicia will become a countess. It's kind of like the salve that fixes everything. Because the dad was all like, you've shamed me and you've shamed my family and blah, blah, blah. Why didn't he just lead with that? Like, hello, I am the Earl of Trafficking, and I am in love with your daughter, and I want to make her my countess. Here is my tattoo of my coat of arms.
my thought would be, if I'm trying to actually, like, rationalize this, from his perspective, it wouldn't make sense. From a narrative perspective, I think it does, because I think if he had led with that, the parents' response would still be, well, too bad, we already promised her to someone else. So she has to get out of that betrothal somehow, because that's ultimately the thing, right? The guy is like, I don't want her anymore. Like, he's the one who breaks the betrothal. So, like, from that perspective, it's like, if he had led with that, then they wouldn't have the trump card to play at the end after she plays her little trick. I still think from, like, an actual human being, so from an author perspective, I'm like, yeah, I guess that's the only way it would work. From an actual human being perspective, I think you would probably lead with that.
Like, you would want to flaunt that, I would think, in this situation. But
he's like, I want my new in-laws to love me for me. I don't want them to love me for my wealth.
I won't tell them I'm an earl, just like I almost didn't tell my fiance I was an earl.
Oh, Jesus.
I also liked how then the betrothed is like, you haven't heard the last from me, and he leaves. Like,
yeah,
there's, like, this real huge concern that he's going to kill her parents now, for me, because he is a big bad mafioso type. Like,
yeah, I would assume if this is the last book of the Mr. series, which it does not seem that E.L. James has a definitive plan to write a sequel. Like, she hasn't said, like, oh, there's gonna be a sequel, but she's like, I might write a sequel.
There could be a sequel.
If there is a sequel, it will 100% be about this guy showing up in London and killing everyone, or attempting to. If there's not, I think what we can assume happens is that Alicia invites her mother to come stay with them for the wedding, and then the mom just stays in England, and the dad can go to hell and die. So. That's fine.
Dad demands that they get married in Albania in a week's time. And Maxim's like, wow, I didn't expect it to happen that fast. And then, I don't know, I guess we're just going to ignore all the legal ramifications of this. Anyway, it's all like, the ending of this book to me is a little bit too unrealistic, a little bit too happily ever after.
Mm-hmm.
But then it just ends with Alicia sneaks into the guest room, which, okay, first of all, least sexy place to have sex is at your parents' house, I think.
I'm sure you could think of a less sexy place.
Oh, the same bed as them.
Same bed as them. That'd be bad. Also, grandparents' apartment.
Ah, very also, yes.
At the nursing home.
Gross. Also gross. They have sex one more time and declare their love for each other at the end.
Yay. So,
Yay.
How did this do as an example of new adult for you?
I think it definitely, and again, this is my stereotypical view of what the new adult genre is. It definitely ticked the boxes of, like, there's lots of sex between young adults. Well, I don't want to say young adults, new adults. And there was, like I said at the beginning, there was kind of like this hint of we're becoming the adults we were meant to be, sort of thing. So, like, Alicia learns to stand up for herself and be more assertive and Western. And Maxim learns how to be nice to a woman.
Just the one,
I guess.
Not all of them.
Just one. Yeah, he hates all the rest of them. And so I guess to me that was kind of like, that's what I expected from a new adult book. But this, I think, was a very bad example of any book.
So as we move forward in the new adult genre, what would you not want to see in further new adult books?
I don't know. This book, again, there's just so much wrong with this book in particular that it's hard to separate what I would want to have better about, like, the genre, or what I would like to fix about the genre, I guess, or what I would like to find. I think, to me, the thing and maybe this is just me, and this is, like, probably a kink that I am not into, is kind of the developing sexuality. I guess I prefer a more mature sexual relationship where everybody knows what they like and it's more equal. I don't really like this idea of one person being very sexually experienced and one person, and then having to, like, break in the other person. That's not my kink. And I know that does work for a lot of people, so I'm not, like, shitting on that. That's just not what I like. And I think I would also like, and this is gonna sound weird, I think I would like more drama within the relationships between people. I feel like what this book missed was just that everyone kind of got along, and there was a little bit with Caroline and his mom where he had some bad moments with them, but for the most part everyone was just, like, friends. Also, they were bad human traffickers. That's not good. But yeah, I don't know, just, like, more interpersonal relationships.
Would you say the people in this book were a little too black and white and were perhaps missing some shades of gray?
I hate to say yes, but that is exactly what I mean.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I think the same problem in this happened in when we read, was it Nevermore by Anna Todd, which is everyone was so bland.
Okay.
And I know that this is, like, we're this no longer a teenager phase is still, like, you go through a lot more shit. And I understand teenagers have a very hard time. Like, there's a lot of hormones and a lot of new things you're experiencing with your bodies. But then when you get to this new adult age, I feel like there's a whole bunch. It's just, like, no one really struggled with anything other than the fact that there's this very serious human trafficking element to this book. And, like, there was, like, I just wanted more
human
realistic, because I know human trafficking does happen. I wanted more of a more relatable experiences. There you go.
Okay. And more river buses.
Yes, infinitely more river buses on the River Thames.
Okay, all right. Something for me to keep in mind as we move forward.
Yeah. And also, like, no college campus stuff, maybe.
The next book is not necessarily going to address these concerns. It's just going to flesh out our understanding of the new adult genre, hopefully.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is something that I'm not really into campus novels. I'm into, weirdly, I'm into boarding school novels, not into campus novels. I can't explain the difference.
That is weird. I Don't.
Other than that, undergrads are gross. I'm sorry if you're an undergrad.
Yeah, you
I
know.
just think undergrads are gross.
Undergrads are gross, unlike those hot 17-year-olds. What?
You know what? My tastes are... What is it he says in 50 Shades of Grey? Very particular tastes.
A particular set of tastes. They kept giving us the 50 Shades of Grey teas in this book, too, because there was a room that she wasn't allowed in for the first part of the book, but then it was just like...
Oh my god, I know! I was like, that's where the whips and chains
that's
are.
Where the kinky stuff is. And he used, like, handcuffs on one of his first, like, hookups. Yeah. But no, it was just his photography darkroom. Also,
parting shot. We didn't even really talk about the problems with Maxim's views on Albania.
There was
slight Albanian racism in this book, and also just the struggles of someone learning English as a second language. I
hated it.
Did not care for the way that the mister kept correcting her English, even after asking her, which he doesn't ask her for a very long time if it's okay that he's doing this, but just like the constant, almost belittling nature of him correcting her English. Like, from my experience with people who are speaking English as a second language, and again, this is not going to be everyone's experience across the board, but they've found that pretty rude when people do that to them, and so I just thought that this was very, like, not own voices in this instance. Yeah. And just the way that, like, Maxim kept referring to Albania as some, like, backwards shithole country, like, wow.
It was rough. Again, we really didn't even super get into, like, the social commentary of this book, but it was all bad, so, you know, it's just...
it's all extremely bad. We were just kind of more focused on the new adultness of this, but yes, please don't go away thinking that we didn't notice, because we did.
I guess kind of moving on from this book, we're not calling it Rather Be Reading anymore, because hopefully sometimes we like these books. But do we have any further reading? Any suggested reading, I guess?
Yeah, I guess I don't really have a new adult book to suggest, but I have been reading a romance series lately, the Parasol Protectorate series by Gail Carriger. Kind of like a steampunk paranormal romance series about a woman who is soulless, and her touch turns paranormal beings into mortals, and she falls in love with an alpha werewolf, and lots of bad things seem to be happening to her in every book, but they're very good. She's like very plucky sort of gal. So if you like romances, this is a lot of romance. Not a lot of sex on the page, but a lot of mention of sex.
That can be better sometimes.
Yeah. Especially if there are noses involved.
Yeah. I've got a couple this week. I kind of mentioned earlier that, I think it's possible to do romances with high-stakes stuff going on in the background. And one of the authors I wanted to shout out for that, who I've been reading a lot of recently, is Alyssa Cole, who writes... Yeah, she's written the Reluctant Royal series and the Loyal League, which is the one that I want to talk about real quick, which is a series of romance novels set in the Civil War times, and features this league of people trying to spy on Confederate forces and bring them to their knees. Oh, cool. So it's great fun, but also very serious sometimes, but it's handled in a way that the book overall is still light and fluffy and doesn't bum you out hardcore. It's just like...
that sounds
good.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a fun story about slavery, like this book tried to be, but failed in many ways. And I also wanted to shout out, this is, I think, the first time I want to talk about a nonfiction book.
Ew, nonfiction.
I know, it's not my usual thing, but I'm trying to read more, and it just really reminded me of this book. This kind of dynamic of this, like, richer guy and a poor woman, and how that plays out. How to Create the Perfect Wife, Britain's Most Ineligible Bachelor and His Enlightened Quest to Train the Ideal Mate by Wendy Moore, which is the true story of Thomas Day, who was a British writer and Enlightenment thinker who came up with this idea to get a young girl from a poorhouse and train her to be his wife. And it goes very, very poorly for him. Not quite as poorly as I kind of hoped going into it, but it doesn't work out very well for him. And it's an interesting kind of like look at how these like Enlightenment thinkers, who we usually are like, oh, they're so ahead of their time, there was a lot of trial and error, and some of their ideas weren't very good. And also, the story has inspired like a lot of fiction stories, including in part George Bernard Shaw, Pygmalion. He drew from the Thomas Day story, which of course inspired My Fair Lady. Those were both based on an earlier myth, but they both reference the story of Thomas Day, who again was a real person who was an idiot and did this stuff.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, more of a literally realistic view of how these sort of very unequal relationships go.
Too bad I don't like to read nonfiction.
Fair enough. All right, so next fortnight we are going to be reading a Slubmission. Oh gosh, did we ask her if we can use her full name? Because I don't think we should use her full name, right? We have it, but we'll just go with Brooke. From Brooke.
We should probably not use her full name. Let's just say
we probably shouldn't use your full name. So from Brooke, hey Brooke, what's up? She suggested this like basically half a year ago, right when we were planning on going on our hiatus. So thank you if you are still listening to this podcast, which hopefully you are. We are finally getting to your book.
Yes.
But she wrote in and she suggested Black Ice by Becca Fitzpatrick, and she said, personally, I really enjoyed Fitzpatrick's other novels, and Black Ice has a ton of great reviews. However, the main character and the rest of the characters are atrociously annoying and inept. The plot drags on in places, and to summarize, it's a book about a girl learning that she can be strong and independent and not depend on a man by totally relying and depending on a man. I would love to hear your discussion on the matter. So yeah, that's going to be our next book. We'll have to see if we agree with the reviewers or if we agree with Brooke. It seems like some stuff we might have a problem with, but who knows?
Absolutely.
And then, because we are doing things a little bit differently now, I can tell you guys, if you want to be reading along with stuff, the episode after that, we're going to be doing the start of the Cyberpunk unit, which is my first unit, with Neuromancer by William Gibson. So,
yes. Which is a lot shorter than I thought it was. Like, I thought it was this huge chunk of a doorstop of a book.
Nah, it's a little boy.
200 pages something. It's very short. You should definitely, that will be like a month from now, so you definitely have time to read along with us.
Okay, so speaking of reading along with us and interacting with us, we alluded to this last episode. We have a fun, oh, I didn't like that S there. We have a fun merch giveaway.
It's so fun.
Shut up, because I'm cutting that.
Are you having fun, Thomas, on your river bus?
We're going to be doing a merch giveaway. We have merch, and by merch, I mean stickers, because we're poor.
But if you buy our stickers, we won't be.
Well, no, but you can't, because you can't actually buy these stickers. They're limited edition stickers that we are only, as of right now, we only have plans to give away. And we would like to give them to you all. We have 4 different designs, and the way this is going to work, to get some free stickers from Shelf Aware, all you have to do is one of 2 things, or both things. Hold on, I'll explain.
No, tell me now.
I'm working on it. You can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Any type of review. If you want to trash us, that would be very weird that you would do that and then request stickers from us, but we will accept that. So any sort of review, preferably 5-star, but any review will do. Or you can talk about us to your friends. So that can be like on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. We don't have a Facebook, but if you want to talk about us on Facebook, that's fine. If you want to text your friends and send us a screen cap of that text, that's fine. Anything in which you are telling a friend or the world at large about this podcast will count. So do that, review, share, and then email us and say, hey, I did this or that. I did it. Yay me. And if you do one of those things, you will get the new logo sticker, the Shelfaware logo, and your choice of one of the other 3 designs. If you do both of those things, you get all 4 of the stickers.
4 stickers!
And a thank you note from me. So that'll be fun for you to read my handwriting. It's very bad.
Because we don't live in the same place. Like, I guess I could send you some things that I wrote.
That's a lot of steps.
And mail them to you to mail to other people.
I'm going to be trying to turn these around quickly. If you really want Anna to write you the note, include that in the email and we will make that happen. And we will be doing this giveaway.
I'll draw a picture.
Fine, I'll draw a fucking picture too. Fuck off.
No, I'll draw 2 pictures.
God damn it, I can't possibly compete with that. 2 pictures? Anyway, we're going to be doing this giveaway either until we get to 100 reviews on Apple Podcasts or until we run out of stickers, whichever one comes first.
Yeah, so join in with that, and you can email us this information at our brand new email address, shelfawarecast@gmail.com. You can also tweet at us at shelfawarecast on the Twitters, and I believe at this point our Instagram handle will also hopefully be changed to at shelfawarecast, but if it's different, we'll let you know on Twitter.
Yeah, we're hopefully by the time you guys are hearing this, everything has been updated. We're probably gonna be doing that this week. So yeah, hopefully everything's the same.
We'll probably tweet out some stuff. So we'll have all of our new handles. So we can still be reached if you are in the future listening to old episodes of a hate read. You can still reach us at that email. Everything's going to the same inbox, so don't fret. We have all your emails still, and we will not ignore anyone that wants to talk to the Anna and M of Hate Read Past.
Yeah. Also I should say, since we're talking about of the past, if you have already left us a review or tweeted about us and you want to get your hands on some stickers, hit us up. That counts. Like, we love you.
It definitely
and does. Support your endeavors in talking about us.
Yes. We recognize your hard work to let people know about us. So you want some stickers.
We'll post the sticker designs on Twitter and Instagram probably like the day after this episode airs, so you can check them out.
Yeah, so you can be tempted. As always, thank you to Ben Cope for the use of our theme song. You can find a link to his YouTube channel in our show notes below. And we are still on all your favorite podcast aggregating platforms, still the same RSS feed. But if you're new here and you haven't subscribed to us yet, you definitely should, because you'll want to do it. That's all I got for that one. I thought I was going to go somewhere better, but my brain stopped working. Oh my god. In the words of E.L. James, breaking in a virgin is a big responsibility. It's a tough job, but someone has to do it. Might as well be me. So gross. I don't know. I feel like there's probably some paperwork they would need to fill out.
Yeah, but there's paperwork with any wedding, you know.
I suppose. Do they do same-day marriage certificates in Albania?
I cannot speak to that, having never been married in Albania.
Neither have I, unfortunately. I guess if you have